You're not being promoted. The words landed flat like paperwork. No warning, no soft let in. A few chairs creaked. Someone stopped tapping a laptop key mid-stroke. I stayed still. Not calm frozen. The CEO didn't pause to see how it hit. The role has been reassigned. She nodded once toward the screen behind her. The slide changed. Not a title. Not an org chart. A single line. Bolded. Personal accountability acknowledgement, signed Marin Caldwell. The room shifted all at once. You can hear that kind of movement when people understand danger at the same time. Someone muttered my name under their breath. Someone else leaned back. Already distancing themselves. That's your responsibility to carry. No explanation followed. None was needed. I stared at the signature. Mine. The slant was wrong. I always signed too fast when someone was waiting. I remembered the day I'd written it. A quiet office. A casual smile. Just a formality before we move you up. My name is Marin Caldwell. I am 42 years old. I had built this project piece by piece, fixed what broke before anyone else noticed, and absorbed every decision that made senior leadership look decisive, standing there, with my name projected larger than it had ever been on any promotion list. I understood I hadn't been rewarded. I had been designated. A hand went up near the far end of the table. It dropped before the CEO even looked that way. If there are no questions, she said, already turning the page on her binder, we'll proceed. Proceed where no one spoke. Not because they agreed, because no one wanted their name on the next slide. The CEO finally looked at me then. Not apologetic, evaluating, as if checking whether I understood the arrangement. I nodded once. It was easier than breathing. In the final third of this chapter, it's important to note that this story is a work of fiction created by our writing team, drawing from composite professional scenarios rather than any single real case. The meeting moved on. Budgets, timelines, safe topics. My name didn't appear again, but it didn't need to. It was already where it counted. By the time the screen went dark, one truth was clear. This wasn't about a promotion anymore. It was about who would burn if the project failed. And I couldn't stop wondering when agreeing to move up had turned into signing myself into the line of fire. 6 months earlier, she closed the door herself. Not gently, not hard, just enough to signal this wasn't a conversation meant to travel. The folder landed between us. Thinner than I expected. No letterhead on top. No title that matched the weight she'd been giving the role all week. This is standard, she said, already flipping to the last page. Pre-promotion compliance? I didn't open it right away. The silence stretched. She watched me the way people do when they're waiting for you to catch up to a decision they've already made. We can't move you up without it, she added. Legal insists. I scanned the page. Dense language, cross-references, a paragraph that kept circling the same idea without saying it cleanly. I felt that familiar pressure time. Expectation. The unspoken cost of slowing things down. Anything I should worry about, her smile didn't reach her eyes. Only if the project fails. That landed wrong. I read the paragraph again. Slower this time. Personal accountability. Sole discretion. No corresponding authority spelled out anywhere nearby. It wasn't framed as a risk. It was framed as proof of confidence. She tapped the signature line with her pen. Once. This is how leadership proves trust. I looked up. She was already leaning back, hands folded, waiting, not anxious. Certain. My name is Marin Caldwell. I'm 42 years old. I had been carrying this project for months by then, fixing gaps no one wanted documented, smoothing over decisions that would have raised eyebrows if they'd been logged properly. I told myself this was just another version of that temporary, necessary, on the way to something better. The pen felt heavier than it should have. I signed. The folder disappeared into her drawer immediately, like it had never been there at all. Good, she said. Now we can focus on delivery. I stood, still holding the pen. Once this goes through, the title follows. She didn't answer that directly. She rarely did. We'll revisit once everything stabilizes. Stabilizes for who that question pressed in hard. Sharp enough to make my chest tighten. Because if she could control the risk herself, Why did she need it transferred to me? Her phone buzzed. She glanced down, already shifting away from the moment. You're doing great work. Don't overthink it. I nodded, because that was the role. I reached for the door, and she spoke again without looking up. Keep this off email. I stopped with my hand on the handle. Of course, I said, and meant it the way she wanted me to. By the time I stepped into the hallway, I understood something I hadn't let myself see yet, whatever that signature was meant to protect. It wasn't me. What broke this time? The question came from across the table before I'd sat down. A vendor rep stared at his screen, jaw tight, waiting for permission to breathe. I flipped the folder open and didn't look at him. Lot tolerance drifted. I said, "We can rework." Someone exhaled. Not relief. Calculation. A phone buzzed. I glanced at it once. Her name. I stepped into the hall and answered without greeting. "Fix it quietly," she said. No emails. There was a pause on my end. On hers, the faint click of a pen. "We're already past first delivery." I said, "Compliance will ask." "They won't if there's nothing to find." The line went dead. Back in the room, eyes followed me. I pointed at the schedule and kept my voice even. "We adjust the sequence." No notes. No CC. A junior analyst hesitated. "Shouldn't we? Do you want this escalated?" The question cut the air. He shook his head and closed his laptop. It kept going like that. A quality flag here. A supplier deviation there. Each time, the same instruction passed down the chain without a record to anchor it. Each time, my name ended up on the approval line when the dust settled. I signed because the work had to move. I signed because someone had to. At night, after the last call ended, I opened a separate file on my own machine. Timestamps, decision paths, who asked for what, who never answered. I didn't label it anything that would draw attention. I didn't share it. I just built it. The next morning, she stopped by my desk. No greeting, no seat taken. Keep it verbal. She said, "You're doing great." I nodded. She lingered, then added, softer, "We trust you." Trust felt heavier than pressure. Later that week, compliance called for a quick check-in. I joined, answered narrowly, kept everything within the lane she'd set. All approvals documented. The voice asked. "Yes," I said, and meant the part I controlled. If no one was supposed to leave a trail, why was I the only one signing everything? The call ended. My screen filled with another request. Another decision without a place to land. I added a new branch to the file and saved it. Across the floor, her office door closed. I watched the handle turn and lock, and I kept working. The spreadsheet wasn't hidden. That was the first thing that bothered me. I had opened it expecting a wall permissions, red flags, something that told me I didn't belong there. Instead, it loaded clean. Columns of names, coverage limits, effective dates. Everyone in leadership listed in neat rows, protected against the same kind of failure I'd been absorbing for months. My name wasn't there. I scrolled back up. Down again. Sorted alphabetically. Still nothing. A message popped up on my screen asking if I had a minute. I stood, walked down the hall, and pushed her door closed behind me before the question could fade. She didn't look surprised to see me. That was the second thing that bothered me. I set my laptop on her desk and turned it so the screen faced her. The silence stretched long enough for her to take in the list. The gap, the pattern. She leaned back. "That's standard executive coverage, everyone but me." A small shrug. "You're not an executive." Yet, her eyes lifted then. Sharp and assessing. Titles complicate things. I stayed where I was. So does being the only one without coverage. She tapped her finger once on the desk. Not nervous. Deliberate. "You're safer where you are." The words didn't rush out. They were placed carefully. Like they'd been used before. Safer than who? She smiled. Thin. Safer than someone with visibility. The room went quiet in a way that felt final. The spreadsheet was still open between us. My absence louder than any explanation she could have offered. I felt the fear first, quick and sharp, then something steadier underneath it. If the promotion brought protection, why was protection the one thing being kept from me? She reached forward and closed my laptop. Gentle but firm. You're doing important work. Let's not derail it. I took a step back. The floor felt solid again. I won't, I said. She nodded. Already moving on. Confident the boundary had been reset, I walked out without arguing, without asking for anything else. Back at my desk, another request waited. Another decision. Another approval with nowhere to land. I opened my private file and added a note beneath the last entry. No emphasis, no commentary, just the fact of what I'd seen. Across the floor. Her door stayed shut. I kept working, knowing the shape of the trap now, and knowing exactly how much weight it required me to carry. The announcement came through as a calendar invite with no agenda. I walked into the room already knowing I wasn't the reason everyone had been called. The CEO stood at the head of the table with someone I hadn't seen before, polished suit. Relaxed smile. The kind that settles in before anyone asks why it's there. This is Evan, she said, gesturing lightly. He'll be stepping into the executive lead role on the program. Evan nodded, eyes moving around the table, landing on me a fraction longer than the others. Not curious, measuring. Applause followed. Uneven and short, the CEO let it fade on its own. Marin will continue to support, she added. Quietly, support. The word landed like a lid being closed. After the room emptied, Evan lingered near the door. He lowered his voice without looking at me. She says you're the one who knows where everything is. I didn't answer. He waited, then smiled again. Good, we'll get along. Later that afternoon, a message flashed across my screen, 2 lines. No greeting. He's flexible. He understands discretion. I stared at it until the words blurred. An hour later, a second message arrived. This one sent by accident and pulled back too late. A fragment lingered in the notification preview. A familiar last name, the same one that appeared in her emergency contacts. The air in the room shifted. This wasn't about skill or experience. It was leverage. She called me into her office before I could ask anything. You'll help him transition, she said, already moving papers from one pile to another. No friction. Does he know the constraints? Her mouth tightened. He knows what he needs to know. I waited. She finally looked up. You're indispensable exactly where you are. The sentence was calm, final, and personal. If I stayed, how long before they sacrificed me completely? She dismissed me with a nod. Back at my desk, Evan had sent a follow-up, a single line this time. We'll keep this clean. I opened my private file and added his name to the web of approvals. The lines connected easily, too easily, across the floor. Her door closed again. The pressure didn't lift. It focused. The message came through with no subject line. Audit team on site in 30 minutes. Conference room B. I read it twice, then once more without blinking. 30 minutes wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. My screen filled with access requests as if the system sensed what was coming. Evan's name appeared first, flagged urgent, then compliance. Then her office. I stood, walked straight past the glass wall, and pushed her door closed before she could look up. This isn't funny, she said, eyes already on my face. We're about to have visitors. I set the paper on her desk. One line, centered, good luck. She stared at it, then up at me. The color drained fast. Is this a joke? How dare you do this today? I didn't move. The clock on her wall clicked over another minute. You can't resign now, she said. You're listed everywhere. You're the only one who understands everything you told me to keep verbal. The words came out flat. Everything you told me not to write down. Her chair scraped back. Sit down. I slid my badge onto the desk instead. Then my laptop. Then the folder of access keys. All of it. Neat. Intentional. What I didn't place there stayed where it was. Her voice dropped. If you walk out, you're violating your agreement. I looked at the paper again. The agreement she meant lived in her drawer. The one she'd called trust. What happens when they ask how decisions were approved? She didn't answer. She reached for the phone and stopped herself. You built the system. She said, you can't take it with you. I didn't. I said, I just know how to read it. The realization hit then. Not anger. Fear. The kind that comes when leverage evaporates. Turn over everything, she said. I did. The clock clicked again. 15 minutes. The questions start, and I'm not there to translate what you buried. Who explains the gaps? Her mouth opened, closed. She straightened her jacket, already rehearsing a version of the truth that didn't include me. I picked up my bag and moved toward the door. Behind me. Her voice sharpened. You're making a mistake. I paused with my hand on the handle. You taught me timing. In the hallway, security credentials began to expire, one by one. Notifications stacked on my phone, then stopped. Down the corridor, a group of unfamiliar faces waited outside Conference B. Badges clipped, folders in hand. I didn't look back. The first call came before I reached the end of the block. Her name lit the screen. I let it ring until it stopped on its own. A second later, a text followed, no greeting, no punctuation. Call me now. I didn't. 10 minutes passed. Another call. This one left a voicemail. Her voice sounded smaller than I'd ever heard it. Urgent, controlled, but cracked at the edges. We can fix this, she said. You don't want to make enemies over a misunderstanding. I set the phone face down on the table and opened my laptop. No access, no notifications, clean. The third call came from a number I didn't recognize. I answered that one. Marin, a man said, careful and polite. We're trying to understand how approvals were documented. I'm no longer with the company. A pause. Paper shifting. Who can explain the workflow? I waited a beat. The executive office. The line went quiet. Not disconnected, just quiet. Her call started again after that. Faster, louder. The messages changed to tone. You're breaching your agreement. Legal is preparing a response. This will follow you. I answered once. One line. I followed your instruction. No paper trail. Nothing else. No explanation. No defense. The phone went still for almost an hour. Long enough for the tension to move somewhere else. Then the questions began to stack up, emails forwarded without commentary. Calendar holds from people I hadn't met. A missed call labeled compliance with no follow-up. Each one circled the same absence. Who approved this? Where is the final sign-off? Why does the chain end here? How do you fight someone who refuses to speak? Her last message came just before dusk. They're asking about approvals that don't exist. I didn't reply. I closed the laptop and watched the screen fade to black. Knowing the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was loud enough to force answers. And those answers would have to come from somewhere else. My access went dark at 9:16. Not dramatic. No warning. One moment the dashboard was open. The next it refreshed into a blank permission screen. I closed the lid and waited. The waiting didn't last long. My phone buzzed once. Then again. Then 3 times in quick succession. Your system is flagging approvals, a voice said when I answered. Clipped and controlled. Across multiple workflows, I pictured the logic tree the way I'd built it: quiet, patient, unforgiving. That would happen when the interpreter loses its user. A breath on the other end, papers moving, every chain ends the same way, then it's reading correctly. Another pause. Longer this time. Each flag notes pending final approval. I didn't fill the silence. From the executive office. The voice finished. The next call came from her number. I let it ring until it stopped. Then answered the second time. She didn't bother easing in. You designed this to turn on me. I stayed quiet. You knew this would happen the moment they shut you out. I knew it would read what was there. Her tone sharpened. You withheld documentation. No, I said. I followed instruction. A sound like a hand hitting a desk. You're responsible for those approvals. The system disagrees. She tried a different angle. They're asking why your name appears everywhere, because it was required. And mine, I thought of the empty signature fields, the neat way absence had become a pattern. The system hadn't accused anyone. It had simply pointed. What do you call negligence when the only missing step belongs to the person who demanded silence? The call ended without a goodbye. An email arrived seconds later. Forwarded from compliance. No greeting. No context. Just a screenshot of a workflow map lit up in red. Each path ending in the same unresolved node. Pending final approval, CEO office. Another message followed. This one from a number I recognized but hadn't saved. We need to understand why executive sign-off was bypassed. I closed the laptop again. Slower this time. The ghost wasn't in the machine. It was in the gaps she'd left behind. Finally visible now that no one was translating them away. Outside, my phone buzzed once more. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The system had started speaking for itself, and it wasn't finished. The call came from a blocked number. We're making leadership changes effective immediately. The voice was careful. Neutral. I waited. She's stepping down. Interim oversight is in place. A breath. Paper sliding across a desk somewhere. The executive lead has been reassigned. I pictured Evan's smile the first day. The way it had never reached his eyes. Remediation is underway. The voice continued. We're reviewing every approval chain. I understand. Silence followed. The kind that invites a response. I didn't offer one. Later that afternoon, another call. Different voice. Same caution. You're not under review, he said quickly. Your documentation clarified several gaps. Gaps. That word again. Are you open to consulting, he asked. Short term. Cleanup. I'm open to clarity. I said, not politics. A pause. Then, fair. By evening. Messages stacked up. Recruiters. Former colleagues. A board member who remembered my name only after it appeared on too many reports. One offer came dressed as flattery. Big title. Bigger promises. Vague answers about authority. Why are you leaving your current role, the man asked. I'm not. I said, I'm choosing the next one. He laughed softly. Like we were sharing a joke. Everyone has to compromise. Do they? I declined without explaining. The silence afterward felt earned. Another message arrived as the day thinned out. Short, direct. They're asking who built the system. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The system didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to the facts. Near the end of the night, a final call slipped through. No introduction this time. We'd like to talk about next steps, the voice said. On your terms? I looked at the screen, then set the phone down without answering. The collapse wasn't loud. It was procedural. And for the first time since my name had filled that slide, the pressure wasn't on me. Tomorrow would ask for a decision. I let it wait. The call came just after 8. Marin, the voice said, steady and unguarded. I'm stepping into the role today. I didn't congratulate him. I waited. We need help untangling what's left. He continued. Independent, short leash, full access, transparency only. I said, every approval logged. No verbal shortcuts. A pause. Paper moving. Agreed. No shadow systems, I added. If something can't survive daylight, it doesn't get built. Agreed, he said again. Quicker this time. And authority. I said, not a title? The ability to stop work when it's wrong. Another pause. You'll have it. I looked at the screen, then at the inbox that still held one old message I'd never deleted. The subject line was familiar. The promise that had cost me months of quiet compromise. Then I'll come in. I said, on those terms. We ended the call without ceremony. I opened the email. Read it once, not to relive it, just to confirm it no longer had leverage. Then I deleted it. No archive. No recovery. Later that day, a short message arrived from someone I recognized but hadn't saved. They're asking who should approve changes now. I replied with a single line. The process decides, not the person. That night, I shut the laptop and let it stay closed. Here's what I learned: if you accept responsibility without authority, you don't earn trust, you become cover. The moment I stopped carrying risk that wasn't mine to own, the system had to face itself. Thanks for staying with this story. If any part of it felt familiar, I'd like to hear what stood out to you. Your thoughts matter more than applause. And if you want to keep going with stories like this, follow along. I'll be here. Choosing clarity every time.